Hi, everyone. Are you thinking about making a real estate move sometime this year in 2025? And now you're wondering, what is the effect of all these real estate commission lawsuits that I've seen or heard about in the news? Well, today I'd love to give you an update on that and clarify a few things. First of all, a lot of the things have stayed the same. The reason we've seen so much about the commission is the biggest change that's happened is now the commission amounts cannot be advertised in the listing. Historically, when someone listed a house and a buyer agent wanted to take their client to see that house, they would know up front what commission that the seller was willing to pay toward that buyer agent. Well, that's the main thing that has changed. Commissions have always been negotiable, and they still are. At this point, if you're going to list your house and you're wondering, what do I need to pay? That is negotiable between you and your agent. If you decide you would still like to pay a portion of the commission to the buyer agent, you may do that. However, it will not be advertised in the listing. The way this is working out in practice is that a buyer agent needs to find out ahead of time if the seller is willing to pay commission, and if so, they include that request in their offer. If the seller is not willing, then that commission burden goes on to the charges for the buyer, and that is paid at closing as part of their closing costs. So what impacts does that bring? Well, if you're listing your home and you do not agree to pay an agent who's bringing the buyer to you a commission, then that's going to make the deal more costly for the buyer. This potentially could limit some of the buyers you'll get that will look at your house or make an offer. Or if they do make an offer, they may take that into account and ask you for some concessions or money towards closing costs that could also be used towards paying their agent. Secondly, it affects you in another way in that if you're representing the buyer, we definitely need to have a signed buyer agreement before we take any buyers into a home, because we need to know upfront, if the seller is not willing to pay that commission, how is this buyer agent going to be paid? And typically that will be then paid by the buyer themselves. So there's more paperwork involved now. Now, usually in our area, we've been using buyer agreements for years, but now it's just a little more clarity given to the buyer that you are responsible for this fee if the seller is not willing to pay that. And honestly, that's the way it's always been. It's just that it's been typical for the seller to pay that buyer agent. So what we're seeing in practice is that over the past 6 months, when this new law has gone into effect, we are still seeing that almost all the sellers are still willing to pay the buyer agent. There are some who are not, and there are some who have lowered the commission slightly. However, in general, in our area, what we're seeing is that the sellers are still offering that commission to the buyer agent because they want to get the most traffic in their house. They want to have an agent who's qualified represent the buyer so that they're more guaranteed that this transaction will go through. So if you have further questions about that, feel free to drop us a message or reach out. We'd love to answer that. But we just wanted to give you an update so that as you think about your move that may be coming up, you have a few more answers. Thanks and have a great day.